There could be numerous reasons for someone in Washington to have their wages garnished. But do you have any options to stop it? Well, depending on your situation, having your wages garnished could put you in a financial hardship. So, for example, if someone makes Washington's minimum wage of $14.49 and now they're having their wages garnished for a $25,000 unpaid debt, that may put them potentially into a hardship where now they're considering to file bankruptcy. And so with all that to say though, I want to cover that and more. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Ascend Finance YouTube channel where we cover wage garnishment in Washington and help folks understand their options to resolve. With that said, everyone's situation is unique, and so we built a free Washington wage garnishment calculator to help folks see what their options are to stop it, compare the pros and cons, and estimate the cost based on their personalized data. My name is Justin and I'm one of the analysts here at Ascend. I speak with quite a few folks who are unfortunately facing a garnishment, and so I'd love to help you understand the process and options. In today's video, I'm going to go through a few things, but first, I want to touch on the options to stop a garnishment, what wage garnishment laws look like for Washington. Then I'm going to touch on wage garnishment process in Washington. Then I'm going to go through kind of the different steps to finding out who could be garnishing your wages. Now, sometimes it may be confusing, and so I want to help equip you with that. And finally, I want to help you understand which option may make most sense for you. Before I dive into the different ways to stop a garnishment and all of this different stuff, I wanted to say if this video ends up being helpful, feel free to leave a like, as it's always encouraging for us to see. Also, if you'd like to see more videos like this covering wage garnishment and different options to resolve debt in Washington, feel free to subscribe as we try to put out new videos weekly. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. And so as I alluded to earlier, we understand that you may be feeling overwhelmed. And at this point, one of the most important things is probably understanding how to stop it, and as it could be potentially debilitating. So we built a Washington wage garnishment calculator to help you understand either A, how much you may be garnished, or B, if you're currently being garnished, determining whether that's the actually correct amount. And also on the calculator, on the results, it'll help you understand the different options to stop a garnishment. When it comes to stopping a garnishment, there are unfortunately only a limited number of ways or different options to stop it, as at this point, the court's already issued an order for an unpaid debt. However, there are options to consider, so let's get into those now. The first option could be potentially filing a bankruptcy to stop the garnishment. There is the liquidation bankruptcy known as Chapter 7, which can potentially provide immediate relief from a garnishment and any other unsecured debt you may have. Now, in order to file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, though, in Washington, you do need to pass the Chapter 7 means test. There are income requirements that's based on your household size, and so I'm going to put that on the screen now. That shows you what the current income limits are for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Washington. And so as you can see, the income threshold goes up as the household size goes up. And so if you're looking at it right now and you see that you may be just above it, or if you're looking for a more up-to-date figures, feel free to take our Chapter 7 calculator. The idea there behind it is to estimate the qualification and cost based on your personalized data and your zip code. It's going to help you understand the pros and cons, the cost, and whether you would even qualify for a 7. And we want to help make it frictionless. And so you don't need to even put in an email address to see your results. Now, so the Chapter 7 filing fee in Washington is $338. You may actually, though, be entitled to have it waived if, though, you are under the fee poverty guideline. So that's another thing I'm going to put on the screen here. I want you to see that you can see based on the number of people in the household, whether you would be above or below the poverty guideline. And if you are under it, you actually may be able to get the filing fee waived. Now, let's say Chapter 7 doesn't make sense, or just in general bankruptcy doesn't make sense for a slew of reasons, whether the debt amount's not large enough or you want to try an option before it. For this option, you could potentially reach out to your local courthouse and see if you're maybe eligible for any exemptions. For example, one could look like being eligible to file a head of household exemption, which potentially could limit how much they're actually able to withhold from your paycheck. Now, with that said, said, I want to help you at least be informed on what the Washington wage garnishment laws look like. In Washington, there should be a limit on the amount of earnings that can be withheld from a single paycheck. Depending on the state, it's generally just based on disposable earnings. Now, I want to help you understand what the laws look like, but it may be easier to have it in writing. So I'm going to put it in the description to help you understand the exact law there of what like percentage of the disposable earnings they can take and what they compare it to and how they basically calculate it. You can always take our calculator if you rather do that, but I'm going to put it in the description below so you can read through it. Now that we've covered the garnishment laws in Washington, at least help point you in a direction where to find them, I want to help you understand the steps and the process behind it. Now, when it comes to a wage garnishment, the actual process of it really depends on the type of debt actually being collected, as there's actually potentially specific procedures for garnishing someone's wages for, child support or spousal support, virtually compared to maybe like credit card debt. So with that all said, though, the process is generally similar across the board for collecting unpaid unsecured debt. So let's kind of get into what the process looks like for reaching at, a wage garnishment for something like that. Now, the first thing they're going to have to do is most likely obtain a judgment against you. And so wage garnishments don't happen overnight, right? And so fortunately, there are checks and balances put in place to protect both the debtor and the creditor from doing anything with ill intent. So if you are facing a garnishment from, let's say, the federal government, maybe for like an unpaid student debt, the process may look a bit different, as they may not need to actually have a court order to withhold your earnings, but nevertheless, let's focus on, regular traditional unsecured debt. So the first step to obtaining a judgment is through a debt collection lawsuit. So the creditor will need to properly serve you for any unpaid unsecured debt. So that's going to probably include credit cards, medical bills, and personal loans, payday loans, of course, and things of that nature. So once you've received the summons, you should see a few things. First, the facts of the case, right? And so you should see a summary of the law, the description of the debt, and the exact amount that you owe. And so most times you should actually have about 30 days to respond, but it should state what that is on the summons. Now, let's say, the creditor has enough documentation to provide sufficient proof, right? And so they have enough proof that you owe the debt. The court now may issue a default judgment. So with the judgment, though, the creditor now has the choice to whether they want to pursue further legal action by maybe requesting a wage garnishment order. So that is the next step here in the process, is actually obtaining a wage garnishment order. So now that we've actually touched on what it looks like to obtain a judgment, I want to kind of go through what the next step of it looks like and kind of what it looks like to obtain a wage garnishment order. So as I just alluded to, with the judgment, the creditor is now able to potentially request a wage garnishment order. So here's what that looks like. The first thing is the creditor is going to request a writ of execution from the court. The next thing is there's going to be a garnishment packet served to your employer. Now, once the employer has received the garnishment packet, you may actually start to see your wages being garnished. Probably, in the first paycheck you've received 10 days after the service. So once your employer has received the garnishment packet, you may actually start to see your wages being garnished in the first paycheck you receive. That's about 10 days after the date of being served. And so your employer may need to provide you with a copy of the garnishment order. And so you should be able to challenge this order, but you may only have around 10 days to ask for any potential exemptions. Now, sometimes folks are not even aware that they are being garnished, who's garnishing, or what the balance is for, and for many, many reasons, unfortunately. So before I go too much further, I want to help you figure out where to go if you either don't know who's garnished your wages or you're not sure the balance they're garnishing you for. I've actually spoken with more and more folks who have unfortunately been caught off guard by a recent garnishment from their wages. Most times they're first hearing about it from being notified by their employer, or they just noticed a portion of their paycheck was being taken out. And so if you do fall into this category, I want to help you understand a few simple steps that may help you actually answer those questions and get a little bit more understanding. Of course, if you already know who's garnishing your wages and the total balance, feel free to skip to the next part here, more covering your options to resolve it as well that I touched on earlier. But if you don't know who's garnishing your wages or what the balance is, here are some steps to take if you need more information. So one step could be, it's depending on everyone's situation, but one step could be reaching out to payroll and seeing if they have any information on who submitted the garnishment order. Most likely them or someone within your employer has information or the documents that they were served. Now, once you know who is garnishing your wages, you should be able to call them directly to get the information on the balance. So once you have an idea of the law firm that's handling the account, you could potentially reach out to them and get an idea of the balance, when it started, how much they want, if there's any offers to resolve. Or if that doesn't work for any reason, you could potentially reach out to the courthouse and see if they're able to look up your case. If you call the local courthouse, they may have the case information regarding the judgment and the garnishment issued. Of course, there's no promises on any of these, but those could be options to explore. Now, if both of those options don't work, you may be able to check your credit report and see if there's any outstanding debts that it may be in relation to. So if you have a medical bill from 4 years ago that is in collections and you haven't paid on it and your wages are being garnished, and you look in the credit report and you see there's a medical bill in collections, well, it could be that, but those are things to check out. Now, the multiple question here is, which options should you do? Now, with all that to say, ultimately it's up to you. However, I would encourage you to take our wage garnishment calculator, as that'll help you compare your options, the cost, the pros and cons to handling a potential garnishment. As I do understand that it can be overwhelming, you're always welcome to give us a call or text at 833-272-3631, and we'd be happy to chat through your situation. I do hope that this video was helpful, but if you do have any questions at all, feel free to leave a comment down below, as I am sure there are others with a similar question. We will do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. However, thanks so much for watching, and I'm always here if you have any questions.